Hello, welcome to another session on Power Apps. In this video, we will be seeing how to implement a Marquee in Power Apps. A Marquee is a scrolling piece of text which is displayed either horizontally across or vertically down the page, depending on the settings. This comes in as a handy way to display warning messages in the app, latest breaking news in a news portal, etc. In this video, we will see how to implement a Marquee in the Power App, just like how what we are seeing in the screen. So the business use case that we have taken is we have built a warehouse management app that is used to take inventory of the items that is brought to the warehouse for storage. We need to show a constantly moving Marquee on the top of the screen that will either drift from left to right or vice versa. With the statutory message, ensure that inflammable or fragile labels are marked correctly so that it gives a clear indication to the warehouse assistant on the urgency of following this instruction. Now, in case of HTML, we used to have a Marquee tag which can be used seamlessly to implement the animated effect of the scrolling text. To simulate the Marquee within Power App, we will take leverage of the timer control. So let's add a timer control to the screen. We will use the timer control which is available in the input section. We have added the timer control and let's rename it as timer Marquee. And we'll also add a label so that we can use the Marquee text within that label, and the label will be sliding across the screen showing the Marquee text. Now we will add the label. So we'll place the label just at the top of the screen, and we will rename the label as label underscore Marquee. And to the text property of the label, let's add the Marquee text that has to be shown in the across the screen. And we will add some styling by giving a red color to the text, and we'll also increase the size of the Marquee text to say 70, and we'll also make the text bold so that it actually indicates the urgency of the text. The timer control has few properties that define the behavior in which it runs. Let's explore some of the properties that we will leverage in this demo. The duration property defines the time for which the timer will run. Duration takes the value in milliseconds. Hence, to define a 5-second run, we will provide the value as 5000. And enabling the repeat property will auto start the timer and run again for the specified duration. So by default, the auto start is set to false, but you can control the value of the auto start using some Boolean variable so that it changes its value based on some actions within the Power App. Now, in our case, we will be wanting the Marquee to be start running by the time when we open the app. So what we will do is like we will go ahead and set the auto start property to on, which will again get reflected in the property here as well. And this is because we want the timer to start just when the app runs, and we'll define the logic for the Marquee to actually start scrolling when the screen opens up. So we want the auto start to be set to true so that the timer starts when the app is open. And we will also set the visible property to off so that the timer is not necessarily has to be visible to the end user, but we can still work with the timer in the behind scenes by taking leverage of its properties. So to hide it, we'll just set the visible property to false. We can tap into the on timer end property to define some logic that has to be run every time when the timer ends. This way, if you want to change the color of the header or update a data source at a predefined, say, 30-second intervals, setting the duration to 30,000, that is 30 seconds, and adding the recurring logic in the on timer end will help us implement the action that has to be performed when you want to do something at the end of the timer end. Now, in our case, we need to move the label text across the screen every 1 second. So we will set the duration to 1 second. And at the end of 1 second, we will take leverage of the on timer end property to update a variable called the calculated position to increment and add 50 to itself. This way, the variable will increment by 50 points every 1 second. We can now start using this variable as the x property value of the label so that every 1 second, the timer will end, which will trigger the on timer end property where the calculated position will be recalculated by 50 points every 1 second. And we will be allocating this value to the x property of the label so that every 1 second the label will be having a new position which is incremented by 50, causing an effect that the label is moving by 50 points every 1 second. So in the on timer end, we will add the expression. We'll use the update context to set the calculated position variable value. We'll be setting it, say for instance, in this case, we are trying to move the marquee from right to left, which means the new calculated position should be decreased by 50 points every 1 second. So we'll be using the expression calculated position minus 50 to reduce 50 points from its actual position so that it will have a new position to the left of the existing marquee label every 1 second. But there is a catch here. Now, say for instance, the marquee has reached the extreme left position and it has started going out of the screen, and at a point it will actually reach minus label marquee dot width as the position. Now, at that point, the marquee is currently at the very extreme end of the screen, outside the screen. And if that is the case, then we want to reset the position to the extreme right end of the screen, which is done by using the screen dot width property. So the calculated position will actually be calculated using the expression where we set the screen dot width as the position if the marquee is in the extreme left position, or else we will just decrement 50 points to the calculated or the existing calculated position variable so that it just moves to the left by 50 points. Now we will set the value of the variable that we have used to store the updated label position to the x property of the label control. We'll just go to the x and set the value as calculated position. This way the x property gets recalculated every second and the label will have a new position after every 1 second. Now let's ensure that the repeat properties for the marquee timer is set to on so that it will restart itself once the duration of 1 second is crossed, so that we'll have an infinite timer which results in a smooth movement of the label from one position to another. So let's go ahead and test the app by previewing it. And we can see that now the marquee text has started moving from right to left, and it is actually getting recalculated every 1 second with 50 points, and it is moving from the extreme right end to the left side. Now, if you want to move the marquee from left to right, instead of decrementing the value by 50 points, we will add 50 points to the calculated position variable so that the new position will always be 50 points added to the existing position, which means the label will move 50 points to the right every 1 second. Now, once they have moved like that 50 points every 1 second, it will reach the extreme right end, which means we need to ensure that the label's position is reset to start from the beginning of the left end of the screen, for which we will just check if the calculated position is greater than the screen width. If so, we will just set the value to minus label dot width, which means it will start from the extreme left of the screen. So this way it will have a transition from left to right and increment by 50 points after every 1 second. So we'll just try to test it out, and we can see that now the marquee is moving 50 points to the right every 1 second. And it will actually go on, and once it has reached the extreme right end, it will try to reset its position to the extreme left end, where it will start the navigation from the left to right from the beginning of the left side of the screen. Now it has moved to the extreme right end, and now we can see that it has position will be reset to the left end, and it will restart again from the left side. So this way we have seen like how we can implement a marquee that either moves left to right or right to left by using a timer control and setting its on timer end property to appropriate expressions that dictate like how the position of the label is controlled after every specific duration that we have mentioned within the timer. So this is one very handy use of the timer to create a marquee within Power App. We will come up with more of such use cases where we will use both Power App and timer control in unison to achieve some of the business use cases. And thanks all for watching, and we will see you soon in another video.